The smell hit me first, exhaust fumes mixed with the sickly sweet scent of rotting garbage baking under the afternoon sun. I pressed my palm against the cracked brick wall of the corner store, trying to catch my breath. My feet ached in these cheap canvas shoes, the soles worn so thin I could feel every pebble on the sidewalk. 12 hours. 12 hours of standing behind a deli counter, slicing meat for people who barely looked at me, and I still had another shift at the diner tonight. I was invisible. That's what poverty does. It erases you from the sight of anyone who matters. The streets of Lower Manhattan were crowded with the usual chaos. Businessmen in expensive suits brushed past me without a glance, their leather shoes clicking against the pavement with the confidence of people who belonged somewhere. I didn't belong anywhere, not anymore. Not since Mom died and left me with nothing but hospital bills and an eviction notice. I pulled my threadbare jacket tighter around my shoulders, even though it was too warm for it. The fabric was thin, faded, but it was mine, one of the last things that was. My hair, unwashed for 3 days, hung limp around my face. I'd stopped caring about my appearance weeks ago. What was the point? No one saw me anyway. I was about to cross the street when I heard it. A sharp cry, thin and frightened. A child. My head snapped toward the sound. There, maybe 20 feet away, a little boy had collapsed on the sidewalk. He couldn't have been more than 7, dressed in clothes that probably cost more than my entire month's rent. Crisp white shirt, tailored shorts, expensive sneakers. But right now, he looked small and terrified, clutching his knee as blood seeped through his fingers. People walked around him like water flowing past a stone. I felt my feet moving before my brain caught up. That old instinct, the one that got me in trouble, the one that made me care when I shouldn't, pulling me forward. "Hey, sweetheart," I said softly, kneeling beside him. The pavement was hot through my thin jeans, gritty with dirt and broken glass. "Are you okay?" He looked up at me with eyes so dark they were almost black, swimming with tears. His bottom lip trembled. "I fell," he whispered. "It hurts." "I know, baby. Let me see." I gently moved his hand away from his knee. The scrape was deep, embedded with gravel and dirt. Not serious, but it needed to be cleaned. "What's your name?" "Marco," he said, hiccuping. "I was running and I tripped and my papa is going to be so angry." "Shh. No, he won't. Accidents happen." I pulled off my jacket and pressed it against his knee, applying gentle pressure. My hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from exhaustion and low blood sugar. I hadn't eaten since yesterday. "Where is your papa?" Marco's eyes went wide. He was right behind me. He told me not to run, but I saw a dog and his voice broke into sobs. I glanced around, searching for an approaching parent, but saw no one. The crowd continued to flow past us, indifferent. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. A child this young, dressed this expensively, alone on a Manhattan street. "Do you have a phone number I can call? Your papa's number?" Marco nodded quickly, rattling off a series of digits. I fumbled for my phone, a cracked Android that barely held a charge, and dialed with trembling fingers. It rang once, twice. Then a voice answered, deep and cold enough to freeze blood. "Who is this?" I swallowed hard. Something in that voice made every survival instinct I had scream a warning. Hi, my name is Emma. I found a little boy on the street, Marco." He fell and hurt his knee. He gave me this number. The silence that followed lasted only seconds, but it felt like drowning. "Where?" It wasn't a question. It was a command, delivered with such absolute authority that I answered without thinking. "Corner of Mulberry and Hester, outside the—" "Don't move." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my heart suddenly racing. Marco had stopped crying and was watching me with an expression too knowing for a child his age. "You called Papa," he said quietly. "Yeah, I did. He's coming to get you. You shouldn't have done that." The words sent ice down my spine. "What do you mean?" But Marco just shook his head, wincing as he shifted his injured leg. I became aware of the sounds around us again, the traffic, the voices, the endless pulse of the city. But now there was something else, a change in the air, like the pressure drop before a storm. People were moving differently, faster, clearing the sidewalk without seeming to realize they were doing it. 3 black SUVs appeared from nowhere, pulling up to the curb with synchronized precision. The vehicles were immaculate, windows tinted so dark they looked like mirrors. Not a single dent, not a speck of dirt. The kind of cars that cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime. My mouth went dry. The back door of the middle SUV opened, and a man stepped out. I couldn't breathe. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled out a black suit tailored so perfectly it might have been painted on. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw shadowed with stubble, a mouth set in a hard line. But it was his eyes that held me frozen. Dark, intense, and completely devoid of warmth as they swept the street with predatory awareness. He moved with the deadly grace of a panther, every step deliberate, controlled. 2 men flanked him immediately, both built like tanks, hands hovering near their jackets in a way that made my stomach clench. More men emerged from the other vehicles, forming a perimeter around us with military efficiency. People weren't just walking around us anymore. They were fleeing. The man's gaze found Marco first, and something flickered in those cold eyes. Relief? Fear? Then his attention shifted to me, still kneeling on the filthy sidewalk with my jacket pressed to his son's knee, and the air itself seemed to freeze. He stopped 3 feet away, towering over me. Up close I could smell him, expensive cologne, leather and something darker, danger, power, the kind that didn't ask for respect. It demanded it. "Papa!" Marco reached for him, and the man moved, scooping his son up with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone who radiated such lethal control. "Shh, Piccolo. I have you." His voice was different now, softer but still edged with steel. He examined Marco's knee with careful fingers, his jaw tightening. Then those dark eyes lifted to me again. "You called me." It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway, struggling to my feet. My legs felt weak. I was acutely aware of how I must look. Dirty, exhausted, in clothes that had seen better days. Next to him, I was nothing, a shadow, a ghost. "He was hurt," I said, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. I didn't know what else to do. He studied me with an intensity that made me feel stripped bare, like he could see every secret I'd ever kept. One of the men beside him leaned in, whispering something urgent. But the man, Marco's father, didn't look away from me. "What is your name?" "Emma. Emma Clark." "Emma," he said it like he was tasting it, memorizing it. "Do you know who I am?" I shook my head, even though warning bells were screaming in my mind. The cars, the guards, the way everyone had scattered, I knew exactly what he was. I just didn't know his name. Something that might have been approval flickered across his face. Dante Russo. He shifted Marco in his arms, reaching into his jacket. Every guard around us tensed, hands moving to their weapons, but he only pulled out a black leather wallet. He extracted several bills, hundreds, I realized with shock, and held them out to me. For helping my son. I stared at the money. It was more than I made in a month, more than enough to pay this week's rent, buy groceries, maybe even fix my phone screen. My fingers itched to take it, but something in his eyes made me hesitate. This wasn't gratitude. This was a test. "I don't want money," I heard myself say. "I just wanted to make sure he was okay." Dante Russo went very, very still. The men around him exchanged glances. Marco's small fingers gripped his father's jacket tighter. "Everyone wants something," Dante said quietly, dangerously. Not for helping a hurt kid. I bent down to pick up my jacket from the sidewalk, trying to hide how badly my hands were shaking. The fabric was stained with Marco's blood now, probably ruined. "He's fine. The scrape needs to be cleaned and bandaged, but it's not deep." I turned to walk away, every instinct screaming at me to run, to disappear into the crowd before... "Wait." The command in his voice stopped me like a physical hand. I looked back over my shoulder. Dante Russo was watching me with an expression I couldn't read, Marco still cradled in his arms. "You're bleeding," he said. I glanced down. My palm was scraped from catching myself when I'd knelt on the pavement, a thin line of blood trickling down my wrist. I hadn't even noticed. "It's nothing," I said. "Carlo, Dante didn't raise his voice, but one of the guards immediately stepped forward. Take her to the hospital. Make sure she's seen by the best doctor. Send me the bill. No, really, I'm fine. I insist. His eyes locked onto mine, and there was something in them now, something intense and unsettling that made my pulse jump. You helped my son. Now I help you. This is how things work, Emma Clark. There was a finality to his words that made argument impossible. Or maybe it was the way he said my name. Like he'd already decided something about me. Something I didn't understand yet. I really need to go, I said weakly. I have work. Where do you work? The question felt like a trap, but I answered anyway, too tired and overwhelmed to lie. Romano's Deli on Elizabeth Street, and Mike's Diner on the late shift. One of his eyebrows lifted slightly. 2 jobs. It wasn't a question, so I didn't answer. I just stood there, holding my bloody jacket, feeling more exposed than I'd ever felt in my life. Dante said something rapid in Italian to the man beside him, Carlo apparently. Then he looked at Marco. Say thank you to the kind lady, Piccolo. Marco's dark eyes, so like his father's, met mine. Thank you, Emma. I'm sorry. Sorry for what, sweetheart? But Marco just buried his face in his father's shoulder. Dante's expression hardened into something unreadable. Carlo will take you home. My men will make sure you're safe. I can take the subway. No. The word was absolute. You can't. And that's when I realized my mistake. The innocent phone call. The simple act of helping a hurt child. I'd done something that couldn't be undone. I'd stepped into a world I didn't understand. Touched something that belonged to a man who clearly owned everything he touched. Dante Russo was already turning away, carrying Marco toward the SUV, when he paused and looked back at me one last time. The afternoon sun caught his face, highlighting the sharp angles, the ruthless beauty of it. I don't forget debts, Emma Clark, he said quietly. Good or bad, remember that. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft, expensive thud. The SUVs pulled away in perfect formation, leaving me standing on the sidewalk with Carlo and 2 other guards watching me like I was something fragile that might shatter. Miss Clark, Carlo said, his accent thick and rolling. Please, the car. I looked at the remaining black SUV, then at my scraped palm, then at the deli where I was already 15 minutes late for my shift. I should have run. I should have thanked them and disappeared into the crowd, back into my invisible life where men like Dante Russo didn't exist. But I got in the car, and everything changed. The SUV's interior smelled like leather and luxury, a scent so foreign to me it might as well have been from another planet. I pressed myself against the door, trying to make myself smaller, as Carlo slid into the driver's seat. Another guard, younger with a scar cutting through his eyebrow, sat in the passenger seat. Neither spoke to me. My phone buzzed. A text from my manager at Romano's. Where are you? I typed back with shaking fingers. Emergency. I'm sorry. I'll make it up. His response was immediate. Don't bother coming back. I stared at the screen, numb. That was it. One of my 2 jobs. Gone. The money I desperately needed to keep my apartment, to eat, to survive, evaporated because I'd stopped to help a child. Where do you live, Miss Clark? Carlo's voice was gentle, almost kind. I gave him the address in a whisper, shame burning through me. He'd see it soon enough anyway. The building with broken windows, the graffiti-covered entrance, the neighborhood where police sirens were the soundtrack to sleep. The drive took 20 minutes through traffic that somehow parted for us. When we pulled up to my building, Carlo said nothing about the boarded-up shop on the corner or the men drinking on the stoop. He simply got out, opened my door, and waited. Thank you, I mumbled, clutching my ruined jacket. Wait. He pressed something into my hand, a business card, thick and expensive. Mr. Russo said to give you this. If you need anything, you call. I looked down at the card, black, embossed with a single phone number. No name, no company. Just numbers in silver ink. I won't need... Keep it anyway. Carlo's dark eyes held something like pity. Mr. Russo doesn't make offers lightly. They waited until I was inside before driving away. I climbed the 4 flights to my studio apartment, each step feeling heavier than the last. The hallway reeked of mildew and someone's burnt dinner. Mrs. Chen's door was open a crack, her suspicious eyes tracking me as I passed. Inside my apartment, I locked the door and leaned against it, finally letting myself breathe. The space was barely bigger than a prison cell. A mattress on the floor, a hot plate, a tiny bathroom with a shower that only worked half the time. Everything I owned fit in 2 garbage bags shoved in the corner. The window looked out onto a brick wall, so close I could touch it if I opened the glass. I peeled off my clothes and stood under lukewarm water, watching Marco's blood and the city's grime swirl down the drain. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept seeing Dante Russo's face. Those dark eyes that had looked at me like I was a puzzle he intended to solve. I don't forget debts, Emma Clark. Good or bad, what did that mean? What had I gotten myself into? I dried off with a threadbare towel and pulled on my only clean clothes. Worn jeans and a faded t-shirt, my stomach growled painfully. I opened the mini fridge, a half-empty bottle of water, some wilted lettuce, 1 egg. I'd been planning to buy groceries with tonight's tip money from the diner. The diner. I glanced at the clock. I had 2 hours before my shift started. I couldn't afford to lose that job, too. I was sitting on my mattress, trying to will away the exhaustion, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Emma Clark? A woman's voice, professional and crisp. Yes? This is Dr. Sarah Chen from Mount Sinai Hospital. We have you scheduled for a walk-in appointment at 6 p.m. this evening. All expenses covered. My mouth went dry. I didn't make an appointment. Mr. Russo's office called ahead. He was quite insistent that you be seen today. A pause. We've cleared our schedule for you, Miss Clark. We'll see you at 6. She hung up before I could protest. I stared at the phone, my heart pounding. He'd tracked me down, found my number somehow, made appointments for me at one of the best hospitals in the city. The business card sat on my mattress, gleaming dully in the fading light. I should have been afraid. Every rational part of my brain screamed warnings, but underneath the fear was something else, a dangerous warmth spreading through my chest. When was the last time anyone had cared if I was hurt? When had anyone insisted I be taken care of? Never. The answer was never. I picked up the card, running my thumb over the embossed numbers. The weight of it felt significant, like a door opening to a world I'd only ever glimpsed from the outside. I went to the hospital. Mount Sinai's private wing was like stepping into a different dimension. Marble floors, hushed voices, the kind of quiet that only money could buy. A nurse in pristine scrubs escorted me to an examination room that was bigger than my entire apartment. Dr. Chen was a petite woman with steel gray hair and gentle hands. She examined my scraped palm with meticulous care, cleaned it with antiseptic that stung, and bandaged it with practiced efficiency. It's minor, she said, but it could have gotten infected if left untreated. Good thing you came in. I didn't really have a choice, I muttered. She smiled slightly. Mr. Russo is persuasive when it comes to matters he deems important. She hesitated, then added, he also requested a full physical examination. When was your last checkup? I don't remember. Maybe 3 years ago? Before my mom got sick. Her expression softened with understanding. Let's make sure you're healthy then. No charge, of course. The examination took an hour. Blood drawn, blood pressure checked, questions about my diet and sleep habits that made me acutely aware of how poorly I'd been treating my body. Dr. Chen's face grew more concerned with each answer. Emma, she said finally, when was the last time you had a proper meal? I couldn't meet her eyes. Yesterday. Maybe the day before. You're malnourished and severely underweight. Your blood pressure is dangerously low. She wrote something on her tablet. I'm prescribing vitamins and supplements. I'm also going to recommend... I can't afford any of that. Mr. Russo's office is covering everything, she said firmly. And I'm not just talking about today's visit. He's opened an account for your ongoing care. The room tilted slightly. Why would he do that? Dr. Chen's eyes held something knowing. Perhaps you should ask him yourself. He's been very clear that your well-being is a priority. She left me with a bag full of vitamins, protein supplements, and instructions to eat regular meals. I felt like a charity case, which I supposed I was. But underneath the shame was that same dangerous warmth. A man I'd met for 5 minutes had done more for me than anyone in my entire life. I made it to the diner with 10 minutes to spare. Mike, the owner, barely looked up when I tied on my apron. "Table 6 needs waters," he grunted. The shift was brutal. My feet, already aching from the morning, screamed with every step. The dinner rush was relentless. Demanding customers, complicated orders, a cook who was slower than usual. I moved through it all in a fog, my mind replaying the afternoon over and over. Dante Russo. The name had a weight to it, a power. I'd wanted to Google him on my break, but something stopped me. Maybe I didn't want to know. Maybe ignorance was safer. At 11 p.m., a group of men in expensive suits took a corner booth. Something about them made my skin prickle. The way they scanned the room, the bulges under their jackets. One of them caught my eye and smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "Hey, sweetheart," he called as I passed. "Come here." I approached with my order pad, trying to keep my expression neutral. "What can I get you?" "Information." He leaned back, studying me with pale eyes that reminded me of a snake. "You Emma Clark?" Every muscle in my body tensed. "Who's asking?" "A friend. Heard you met Dante Russo today. That true?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. My throat had closed up. The man's smile widened. "That's a yes." "Interesting. What's a girl like you doing with a man like him?" "I helped his son. That's all." "That's all," he repeated mockingly. "You know what Russo is? A father." One of the other men laughed, a harsh sound. "Cute. Real cute. Tell me, sweetheart, did he pay you well for your assistance?" The implication in his voice made my stomach turn. "I need to take your order or..." His hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to trap. "I'm having a conversation with you. That's rude," walking away. "Let go of me." "Or what?" He pulled me closer, and I could smell alcohol on his breath. "You'll call your boyfriend? The big bad Russo?" The diner had gone quiet. Mike was watching from behind the counter, but he didn't move. No one moved. They never did. I was on my own, like always. "Please," I said quietly, hating the tremor in my voice. "Let me go." He did, suddenly shoving me back. I stumbled, catching myself on the edge of the table. The men laughed. "Run along, sweetheart. But do me a favor. When you see Russo again, tell him Tony Marcelli sends his regards. Tell him I'm looking forward to our next conversation." I fled to the kitchen, my heart hammering. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the water pitcher. Mike found me there, his weathered face twisted with disgust. "Those guys are trouble," he muttered. "Bad crowd. You stay away from them." "I don't even know them." "You know Russo. That's enough." He grabbed my arm, his fingers biting into my skin. "Listen to me, kid. Whatever you got going with that man, end it. Now. Before you end up dead in an alley somewhere." "I don't have anything going with him. I don't care. Stay away. That's an order." He released me, shaking his head. "Guys like that, they're poison. Everything they touch turns to ash." I finished my shift in silence, avoiding the corner booth. The men left without paying, laughing as they walked out. Mike didn't say anything about it. He just locked the door behind them and told me to go home. The subway ride back was empty, echoing. I kept seeing those pale snake eyes, hearing that mocking voice. "Tony Marcelli sends his regards." Who was he? Why did my meeting Dante matter to him? I climbed the stairs to my apartment, exhaustion pulling at every limb. All I wanted was to collapse on my mattress and sleep for a week. But when I reached my door, I stopped. There was a box outside it, large, white, tied with a black ribbon. My heart started to race. I looked up and down the hallway, but it was empty. Mrs. Chen's door was closed, no light showing underneath. I knelt beside the box, my hands shaking as I pulled the ribbon loose. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, were clothes. Beautiful clothes. Soft sweaters, well-made jeans, a winter coat that looked like it cost more than 3 months of my rent. Underneath, there were bags of groceries, real food, Fresh vegetables, fruit, pasta, sauce, chicken, eggs, enough to fill my tiny fridge for weeks. At the bottom, a note on thick cream paper, written in bold, slashing handwriting. You will not go hungry. You will not wear rags. This is not negotiable. Dr. I sat back on my heels, staring at the words. The kindness of it hit me like a physical blow, stealing my breath. But underneath the gratitude was something darker. Fear. Because men like Dante Russo didn't give without expecting something in return, and I had no idea what he would want from me. But I was about to find out. 3 days passed, and I didn't hear from Dante Russo. I wore the clothes he'd sent, warm, soft against my skin, fitting perfectly as if he'd somehow known my exact size. I ate the food, savoring every bite, feeling my body slowly come back to life. The vitamins from Dr. Chen helped too. For the first time in months, I didn't wake up dizzy. I could think clearly. I could breathe. But the gifts sat heavy on my conscience, a weight I couldn't shake. I still had the business card. I'd pull it out sometimes, late at night, running my fingers over the embossed numbers. I never called. What would I even say? Thank you for the charity? What do you want from me? The answer to that last question terrified me more than I wanted to admit. Work at the diner continued. Mike watched me with wary eyes, especially after I showed up in the new coat. He didn't ask where it came from. He didn't have to. The corner booth where Tony Marcelli and his men had sat remained empty, but I felt their presence like a ghost, haunting me. On the 4th day, everything changed. I was wiping down tables during the afternoon lull when the diner door opened. I glanced up out of habit, and my heart stopped. Dante Russo stood in the doorway. He was dressed differently than before. Dark jeans, a black sweater that hugged his broad shoulders, a leather jacket that probably cost more than a car. But it was still unmistakably him. That same commanding presence, that predatory grace. Every head in the diner turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. His eyes found mine immediately, and I saw something flicker in their depths. Satisfaction, maybe, or possession. He walked toward me, and the world narrowed to just him. Each step deliberate, controlled, like a panther stalking prey. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My fingers gripped the dish rag so tightly my knuckles turned white. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, cedar and something darker, more dangerous. Emma. My name in his deep voice sent shivers down my spine. Mr. Russo. I hated how breathless I sounded. Dante, he corrected softly. His eyes traveled over me, taking in the sweater he'd sent, and something like approval crossed his face. You're wearing my gifts. Yes, thank you. You didn't have to. I wanted to. He glanced around the diner, his expression hardening as he took in the cracked vinyl booths, the flickering fluorescent lights, the stained linoleum. This is where you work? One of the places, yes. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Not anymore. Excuse me? You're done here. He said it like it was already decided, like my opinion didn't matter. I have a position for you. My stomach dropped. I don't understand. My son won't stop talking about you. He wants to see you again. Dante's voice was calm, but there was something beneath it, something intense and unyielding. I need someone I can trust around Marco. Someone who proved they would help him without wanting anything in return. You want me to... what? Be his nanny? Caretaker, companion, whatever you want to call it. He pulled out his phone, tapped something, and showed me the screen. A number that made my vision blur. This is what I'll pay you. Monthly. I stared at the figure. It was more than I made in 6 months at both my jobs combined. It was enough to get a real apartment, buy real food, maybe even save something for the future I'd stopped believing in. That's too much, I whispered. It's what you're worth. His eyes burned into mine. Say yes, Emma. I don't know anything about taking care of children. You knew enough to help Marco when no one else would. That's all that matters to me. He stepped closer, and I could feel the heat radiating from his body. You're struggling, working yourself to death for pennies. Let me help you. Why? The question burst out of me. Why do you care? Something dangerous flashed across his face. Because you're mine to protect now. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with meaning I didn't fully understand. Mine. Like I was something he'd claimed, something that belonged to him. I'm not... Emma! Mike's voice cut through the tension. He was behind the counter, his face red with anger or fear. Maybe both. You got customers waiting. Dante didn't even look at him. His attention remained fixed on me, absolute and unwavering. Give him your notice. Now. I can't just... Yes, you can. He reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek so gently it felt like a whisper. The touch sent electricity through my entire body. Trust me. And God help me, I wanted to. Every instinct I'd honed to survive screamed that this was dangerous, that men like Dante Russo consumed everything they touched. But I was so tired of being hungry, of being invisible, of fighting just to exist. Okay, I heard myself say. Okay. Satisfaction blazed in his eyes. Good girl. He pulled out another card, different from the first, this one white with an address embossed in gold. Come to this address tomorrow morning. 8 a.m., Carlo will be waiting. Tomorrow? But I need to give 2 weeks. I'll handle it. He turned toward Mike, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. She's done here. Today. Now. Mike's face went pale. Now listen here. Dante moved so fast I barely saw it. One moment he was beside me, the next he was at the counter, leaning in close to Mike. I couldn't hear what he said, but I saw Mike's expression crumble from anger to terror in the space of a heartbeat. When Dante straightened, Mike was nodding frantically. Yeah, okay, she can go. Dante returned to me, pulling out his wallet. He extracted several $100 bills and placed them on the table. For her final wages, and compensation for the short notice. It was probably 10 times what Mike owed me. Take off your apron, Dante said quietly. My hands shook as I untied it, letting the stained fabric fall to the floor. Without it, I felt naked. Exposed. This diner, as horrible as it was, had been my anchor, my last connection to the life I knew. Come. Dante's hand settled on the small of my back, warm and possessive through the sweater. I'll take you home. I can take the subway. No. That absolute tone again, the one that allowed no argument. You'll never take the subway again. Not while you're under my protection. Under my protection. The words should have comforted me. Instead, they felt like a cage door closing, but I let him guide me out of the diner, past the staring customers, into the cold afternoon air where a black SUV waited at the curb. Carlo stood beside it, his expression carefully neutral as he opened the back door. Dante slid in beside me, close enough that our thighs touched. The door closed, sealing us in leather-scented darkness. Address, Dante said to Carlo. I gave it, shame burning through me again. But Dante just nodded, like my neighborhood didn't matter, like the broken building and dangerous streets were irrelevant details. The drive was silent. I stared out the window, watching the city blur past, my mind racing. What had I just agreed to? Who was this man sitting beside me, radiating power and danger like heat from a furnace? You're afraid of me, Dante said suddenly. Not a question, an observation. I swallowed hard. Should I be? That depends. He shifted, and I felt his gaze on my profile like a physical touch. I protect what's mine, Emma, fiercely. But I also expect loyalty, honesty. Can you give me that? I don't even know you. You will. The certainty in his voice sent chills down my spine. And I'll know you. Every part of you. Every secret. Every fear. Every dream you've buried because you thought you didn't deserve them. I turned to look at him then, and the intensity in his dark eyes stole my breath. He wasn't just looking at me. He was seeing me. Really seeing me. In a way no one ever had. Why? I whispered. Why me? His hand came up, cupping my face with surprising gentleness. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I shivered. Because when everyone else walked past my son, you stopped. Because you refused my money. Because you're the first real thing I've seen in years." His voice dropped lower, rougher. "And because from the moment I saw you kneeling on that dirty sidewalk covered in grime and blood, looking up at me with those defiant eyes, you were mine. You just didn't know it yet." My heart hammered against my ribs. "That's crazy." "Yes." A dark smile curved his lips. "It is, but I've never claimed to be sane, Emma. Just honest." The SUV pulled up to my building. Dante's expression hardened as he took in the graffiti, the broken windows, the men loitering on the corner who scattered the moment they saw the vehicle. "You live here?" Again, not a question. "Yes." His jaw clenched. "Not anymore. Pack your things. You're coming with me." "What?" "No, I can't just... This place isn't safe." His voice was hard now, edged with something that might have been anger. "Do you know who Tony Marcelli is? The name from the diner." I shook my head. "He's my enemy. A rival who would love nothing more than to hurt me through anyone I care about." Dante's hand was still on my face, holding me captive with his gaze. "He approached you at the diner 3 days ago. Asked about me. Threatened you." "How did you know?" "I know everything that concerns you." He leaned closer, and I could feel his breath on my lips. "Every move you make, every person who looks at you wrong, I know. And Marcelli putting his hands on you?" His expression turned deadly. "That will never happen again. You're having me watched," I breathed, somewhere between horrified and something else. Something warmer. "Protected," he corrected. "There's a difference. And after what Marcelli did, after he dared to touch what's mine..." He stopped, taking a visible breath to control himself. "You're not safe here, Emma. You never were. But now that you're connected to me, you're a target. I didn't ask for this. No. You asked for nothing. You just helped a child." His thumb stroked my cheek again, achingly gentle. "But that's why you're perfect. That's why I won't let you go." The possessiveness in his words should have terrified me. It did terrify me, but it also made something deep inside me unfurl, something that had been locked away since my mother died, and I learned that I was completely, utterly alone in the world. Here was a man who wanted me, who saw me, who would protect me, even if that protection felt like a beautiful cage. "Pack your essentials," Dante said, releasing me and opening the door. "Carlo will help. You have 15 minutes. 15? I can't pack my entire life in 15 minutes. You won't need most of it." He stepped out, then turned back, offering his hand. "I'll provide everything you need, better than what you have, better than you've ever had." I stared at his outstretched hand. This final moment of choice. I could refuse. I could walk away, back to my miserable apartment and my poverty and my invisible life, or I could take his hand and step into the unknown. Into danger, into a world I didn't understand, into the arms of a man who terrified and captivated me in equal measure. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine, warm and strong, and I saw triumph flash in his eyes. "Good girl," he murmured again, pulling me close against his side as we walked into my building. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that my life would never be the same. Dante's penthouse was a world I'd only ever seen in movies, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, marble floors so polished I could see my reflection, furniture that probably cost more than most people's houses. Everything was sleek, modern, expensive, and cold, beautiful, but sterile, like a museum instead of a home. Carlo had driven us here after I'd thrown my few belongings into garbage bags. Dante hadn't said a word about my pathetic possessions. He'd just carried them himself, refusing to let Carlo touch them. Like even my worn clothes were something precious. Now I stood in the main living area, feeling completely out of place in my secondhand jeans and borrowed sweater, while Dante moved through the space with casual ownership. "Your room is this way." He led me down a hallway lined with abstract art. The door he opened revealed a bedroom bigger than my entire previous apartment. A massive bed with white linens, a walk-in closet, an ensuite bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. "This is... too much," I whispered. "It's what you deserve." He set my bags down by the closet. "There are clothes already in there. I had them brought in this afternoon. If anything doesn't fit or you don't like it, tell me and I'll have it replaced." I walked to the closet and opened it, my breath catching. Rows of dresses, jeans, sweaters, shoes, everything organized by color and type. Casual clothes, formal wear, things I would never have an occasion to use. All in my size. How did you know? I told you. I know everything about you. He came up behind me, close enough that I could feel his heat. Your size, your preferences, what you need even when you don't know you need it. I turned to face him, and the intensity in his eyes made my pulse race. This is insane. You don't even know me. I'm learning. His hand came up to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear, the gesture oddly intimate. And you'll learn me, starting now. What does that mean? It means you're going to have dinner with me and Marco. He's been asking about you constantly. Something soft entered his expression. He doesn't trust easily, neither do I. But he trusts you. I barely spent 5 minutes with him. 5 minutes where you showed more kindness than most people have shown him in his entire life. Dante's voice hardened. His mother abandoned him when he was 2. Left him on my doorstep like garbage and disappeared. Since then, every nanny, every teacher, every person I've hired to care for him has wanted something. Money, access, connection to me. You're the first person who helped him just because he needed help. The pain in his words struck something deep in my chest. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Now you do. He stepped back, giving me space. Freshen up. Dinner is in an hour. Marco's excited to see you. He left, closing the door softly behind him. I stood there for a long moment, trying to process everything. Then I moved to the bathroom, stripping off my clothes and stepping into the shower. The water was perfect, hot, strong pressure. Nothing like the pathetic trickle in my old apartment. I stayed under the spray until my skin was pink, washing away the grime and exhaustion of my old life. When I emerged, I wrapped myself in a towel so soft it felt like sin. The clothes in the closet fit perfectly. I chose simple jeans and a cashmere sweater in deep green. Looking at myself in the mirror felt surreal. I looked healthy, put together, like someone who belonged in a place like this. But I didn't belong. I was a fraud, playing dress-up in a world that wasn't mine. A knock on the door made me jump. "Come in," I called. The door opened to reveal not Dante, but a small figure in superhero pajamas. "Marco," I breathed. He stood in the doorway, his dark eyes, so like his father's, wide and uncertain. His knee was bandaged, a small reminder of how we'd met. "Emma, Papa said you're staying with us now." "For a while, yeah." I knelt down to his level. "How's your knee?" "Better. It doesn't hurt anymore." He took a tentative step forward. "Are you going to be my nanny, like Miss Patricia was? I'm going to take care of you if that's okay with you." He studied me with that too-knowing gaze children sometimes have. "Miss Patricia left because Papa scared her. He scares everyone." My heart clenched. "Does he scare you?" "Sometimes. But he never hurts me. He just gets angry when people try to take me away or hurt me." Marco moved closer, his small hand reaching out to touch my sweater. "You're not scared of him." "I didn't say that. But you're here anyway." He looked up at me, and I saw hope in his eyes. Fragile, desperate hope. "Will you stay? Even when he gets scary?" I thought about Dante's intensity, his possessiveness, the barely leashed danger that radiated from him. I should run. Every self-preservation instinct I had screamed it. But looking at this little boy, who'd already been abandoned once, who trusted so carefully, "I'll stay," I heard myself promise. Marco's face broke into a brilliant smile. "Good. Come on. Dinner's ready. Papa made pasta. He only cooks when something important happens." He grabbed my hand, tugging me out of the room. His small fingers in mine felt like trust made physical, and I realized with a start that I would do almost anything to protect that trust. We walked through the penthouse to a dining room I hadn't seen before. A long table was set for 3, candles flickering, and the smell of garlic and tomatoes filled the air. Dante stood by the kitchen island, sleeves rolled up, stirring a pot of sauce. He'd changed too. Dark slacks, a white button-down shirt open at the collar. He looked younger somehow, less dangerous, almost domestic, until his eyes met mine, and I saw the hunger there, not for food. "Sit," he said, his voice rough. "It's almost ready." Marco pulled me to a chair, climbing into the one beside me. Dante brought over plates of pasta, perfectly al dente, covered in a rich red sauce that smelled like heaven. "You cooked this?" I asked, stunned. "My mother's recipe." He sat across from us, his gaze never leaving my face. "I don't cook often, but tonight felt special." We ate, and it was the best meal I'd ever had. Not just because the food was incredible, but because of the warmth of it. The three of us around a table, Marco chattering about his day at school, Dante listening with an attention that showed how much he loved his son. I caught myself relaxing, laughing at Marco's stories, feeling almost normal. Then Marco said something that changed everything. "Emma, do you know my papa is the most powerful man in New York?" I glanced at Dante, whose expression had gone carefully blank. "Is he?" "Uh-huh." "Everyone's afraid of him, because he's the boss." Marco said it with such casual pride. "Papa, can I tell Emma about Uncle Enzo?" "No." Dante's voice was sharp. "Eat your dinner, Piccolo." But the spell was broken. I was reminded suddenly that this wasn't a normal family dinner. That the man across from me, who cooked pasta and loved his son, was also someone people feared. Someone with enemies. Someone who had guards and bulletproof cars and made people like Mike crumble with a single look. After dinner, Dante put Marco to bed. I heard their voices from down the hall. Dante's low murmur, Marco's sleepy responses. It was achingly tender, this glimpse of the man behind the monster. When Dante returned, he found me on the balcony, staring out at the glittering city. The night air was cold, but I needed it to clear my head. "He adores you already," Dante said, coming to stand beside me. "I've never seen him warm up to someone so quickly. He's a sweet kid. He's everything to me." Dante's voice was fierce. "Everything I do, every decision I make, it's for him. To give him a better life than I had. To protect him from the world that wants to destroy people like us. People like you." I corrected softly. I'm not part of your world, Dante. You are now." He turned to face me fully, his hand coming up to cup my face. The gesture was becoming familiar, and I hated how much I was starting to crave it. "The moment you helped Marco, the moment you got in my car, you became part of this, of us." I didn't know what I was agreeing to. Would it have changed anything? His thumb stroked my cheekbone. "If you'd known who I was, what I do, would you have still helped my son?" I thought about Marco's tears, his small, scared face. "Yes. That's why you're here. That's why you're different." Dante stepped closer, and my back hit the railing. "Everyone else sees the power, the money, the danger. You just saw a hurt child who needed help. And what do you see when you look at me?" The question came out barely above a whisper. His eyes darkened, and something dangerous flickered in their depths. "Mine. I see mine." Then his mouth was on mine. The kiss was nothing like I expected. Not gentle, not asking permission. It was claiming, possessive, demanding everything I had to give. His hand fisted in my hair, holding me still as he devoured my mouth like a starving man. I should have pushed him away, should have been outraged at his presumption. Instead, I melted into him, my hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. He tasted like wine and mint and something dark and addictive. His other arm wrapped around my waist, crushing me against his hard body, and I felt the evidence of his desire pressing against my stomach. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. His forehead rested against mine, his eyes closed. "I've wanted to do that since the moment I saw you," he said roughly. "Dante, don't." His eyes opened, burning into mine. "Don't tell me this is wrong. Don't tell me we barely know each other. I know enough. I know you're strong and kind and so fucking beautiful it hurts to look at you. I know you've been alone too long, struggling too hard, and I want to give you everything. I want to worship you, protect you, keep you." "You can't just keep me," I protested weakly, even as my body screamed otherwise. Watch me. His hand tightened in my hair, and the possessiveness in his expression should have terrified me. You're mine now, Emma. Mine to protect. Mine to care for. Mine to... He trailed off, his jaw clenching. Tell me you feel it too. This pull between us. I couldn't lie. Not when his eyes held mine with such intensity. I feel it. Triumph blazed across his face. Then stop fighting it. Stop fighting me. What happens when you get tired of me, when the novelty wears off? His expression turned almost offended. That won't happen. You don't know that. I know myself. He released my hair, but only to frame my face with both hands. When I commit to something, to someone, it's forever. I don't give up. I don't let go. Ever. The absoluteness of it should have sent me running. Instead, it made something warm and desperate unfurl in my chest. Because wasn't that what I'd always wanted? Someone who wouldn't leave. Someone who would fight for me instead of abandoning me, even if that someone was dangerous. Even if staying meant entering a world I didn't understand. Okay, I whispered. Okay, what? Okay, I'll stop fighting. I'll try this. Whatever this is. Dante's smile was savage and beautiful. This is everything, Emma, and I promise you, I'll make it worth it. He kissed me again, softer this time, but no less intense. And as I stood there on that balcony, wrapped in his arms, I felt the last of my resistance crumble. I was his now. For better or worse, the only question was, what would that cost me? 2 weeks passed in a blur of new routines and stolen moments. My days revolved around Marco, taking him to his private school in the mornings, helping with homework in the afternoons, reading bedtime stories at night. He was a bright, sensitive child who loved dinosaurs and asked a million questions about everything. Being with him filled a void I hadn't known existed, made me feel needed in a way I'd never experienced, but my nights belonged to Dante. He would come home late, smelling of expensive cologne and sometimes something darker. Gunpowder, I thought once, though I didn't ask. He'd find me in the living room or on the balcony, and we'd talk for hours. About my childhood, my mother's illness, my dreams of going to college before poverty crushed them. About his past too, in fragments. Growing up in Brooklyn, losing his parents young, building his empire from nothing. He never explicitly said what that empire was. I never asked. Some truths were safer left unspoken. What we had instead were kisses that left me breathless, touches that set my skin on fire, whispered promises in the dark. He was patient in a way I hadn't expected, never pushing for more than I was ready to give. But the hunger in his eyes grew with each passing day, a barely leashed desire that matched my own. I was falling for him, foolishly, desperately, completely. And that terrified me more than anything. On the 15th day, everything shattered. I was walking Marco home from school, Carlo trailing us at a discreet distance as always, when a black sedan pulled up beside us. Different from Dante's vehicles, older, with tinted windows that didn't quite hide the men inside. Keep walking, Carlo said sharply. Suddenly between us and the car, his hand moved inside his jacket. But the back door opened, and Tony Marcelli stepped out. He looked different in daylight, older, harder, with cold eyes that made my skin crawl. 2 men flanked him, hands visible and empty but radiating threat. Emma Clark, Tony said, smiling that snake smile. What a coincidence. Get back in the car, Mr. Marcelli. Carlo's voice was deadly calm, but I saw his finger hovering near his concealed weapon. Now. Relax. I just want to talk to the lady. Tony's eyes shifted to Marco, and something vicious crossed his face. And the little prince? You've grown, haven't you, kid? Last time I saw you, you were just a baby. Marco pressed against my side, and I felt him trembling. My arms went around him instinctively, protective fury rising in my chest. Leave him alone, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Or what? Tony laughed. You'll call Daddy? Oh wait, you're not his mother. You're just the latest whore Russo's keeping warm. The words hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch. You need to leave. I will. But first, a message for your boyfriend. Tony stepped closer, and Carlo moved to block him, tension crackling in the air. Tell Russo that the shipment he stole? I want it back, with interest. He has 48 hours, or... His eyes dropped to Marco again. Well, it would be a shame if something happened to that pretty little boy. Rage like I'd never known flooded through me. I pulled Marco behind me, facing Tony with every ounce of courage I could muster. You threaten him again, and I'll kill you myself. Tony's eyebrows rose. Then he laughed, genuine amusement lighting his face. Oh, Russo picked a feisty one this time. I like it. His expression hardened. But you're out of your depth, sweetheart. This world, it eats girls like you alive. Ask Russo what happened to Marco's mother when she got too curious. Before I could respond, Carlo had his gun out, pointed directly at Tony's chest. Leave, now, or I paint this sidewalk with your brains. Tony's men moved, reaching for their own weapons, and I knew with horrible certainty that we were seconds away from a shootout on a crowded street with Marco right there. Stop! The command rang out with such authority that everyone froze. Dante stood 20 feet away, flanked by 6 men. He must have been nearby, must have gotten Carlo's distress signal. His face was a mask of cold fury, but his eyes were volcanic, barely controlled violence simmering beneath the surface. He walked forward slowly, and Tony's men actually stepped back. Even Tony himself looked uncertain for the first time. You threatened my son, Dante said quietly, too quietly. In front of witnesses, on a public street. Just business, Russo. You know how it is. No. Dante stopped 5 feet away, and the temperature dropped 10 degrees. There are rules. Lines we don't cross, and you just crossed every single one. What are you going to do? Start a war over... Dante moved faster than I could track. One moment he was standing still, the next his hand was around Tony's throat, slamming him against the car with brutal force. Tony's men raised their guns, but Dante's men were faster, weapons trained on every target. You threaten him again, Dante said, his voice like death itself, and I will burn everything you love to the ground. Your clubs, your businesses, your family, all of it. Ashes. Do you understand me? Tony's face was turning purple, but he managed a nod. Dante released him, stepping back. The shipment is mine. Fair payment for your betrayal last year. If you have a problem with that, take it up with the commission. But you stay away from my son. You stay away from Emma. You even look at them wrong, and you're a dead man. He turned his back on Tony, a deliberate insult, and walked to me and Marco. His hands were gentle as he checked Marco over, searching for any sign of harm. Are you okay, Piccolo? His voice had transformed, all the violence replaced with tenderness. I'm okay, Papa. Emma protected me. Dante's eyes lifted to mine, and what I saw there made my breath catch. Pride, possessiveness, and something deeper, something that looked almost like love. Of course she did, he said softly. Then to Carlo. Get them home. Now. What about you? I asked, my voice shaking with delayed shock. I have business to finish. He cupped my face, kissing me hard and fast. Don't worry, I'll be home soon. The penthouse felt like a cage as I waited. Marco was fine, already playing with his toys, the encounter already fading for him. But I couldn't stop shaking, couldn't stop replaying Tony's words. Ask Russo what happened to Marco's mother when she got too curious. When Dante finally walked through the door 3 hours later, I was pacing the living room. He looked tired, his jacket gone, blood on his knuckles. Is that yours? I asked, pointing to the blood. No. He moved to the bar, pouring himself whiskey. Tony won't be a problem anymore. What did you do? What I had to. He downed the drink, then poured another. He threatened my son. Our son, as far as I'm concerned. Since you're the one raising him, no one threatens what's mine. Our son, I repeated, the words doing strange things to my heart. Dante, I need you to be honest with me. What exactly do you do? What is this world I'm living in? He was quiet for a long moment, studying his glass. When he spoke, his voice was measured. I run an organization. We control certain industries in New York. Gambling, some construction, importing. Nothing that hurts innocence, but not entirely legal either. You're a criminal. Yes. No denial, no justification. I'm what people call a mafia boss, though I prefer to think of myself as a businessman who operates outside conventional systems. I should have been horrified. Maybe I would have been, 2 weeks ago. But I'd seen how he was with Marco. How he treated me. The code he lived by. Whatever else he wasn't a monster. And Marco's mother? His expression darkened. Sophia. She was the daughter of a rival family. Our marriage was arranged, political. She never wanted Marco, saw him as a burden. When he was 2, she took money from my enemies and disappeared. I never found her. Tony said, "Tony is a liar who wanted to scare you. Sophia is alive somewhere, living off my money. I let her go because keeping her would have hurt Marco more than losing her did." His eyes met mine, raw and honest. "You want the truth? Here it is. I'm not a good man, Emma. I've killed. I've hurt people. I'll do it again to protect what I love. But I would never ever hurt you or Marco. You're the only good things in my life." Tears burned my eyes. This is insane. I should leave. I should take Marco and what? He set down his glass, crossing to me in 3 long strides. "Go back to your studio apartment that doesn't have heat? Go back to working yourself to death for pennies? You think I'll let you starve on the streets when I can give you everything? I didn't ask for everything. No, you asked for nothing. That's why you deserve it all." His hands framed my face, and I saw desperation in his eyes. "I know this is moving fast. I know you're scared. But Emma, I love you. I've loved you since you knelt in the dirt to help my son. Let me take care of you. Let me give you the life you should have had. You love me?" The words came out as a whisper, completely, obsessively, probably unhealthily. A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. "I told you. When I commit to something, it's forever, and I'm committing to you. Completely. If you'll have me." I thought about the past 2 weeks, the safety I'd felt, the warmth of being needed, the way Marco looked at me like I hung the moon, the way Dante looked at me like I was his whole world. I thought about going back to my old life. Alone, invisible, struggling. "I love you too," I said, and watched wonder bloom across his face. "I don't know when it happened, but I do. This is crazy and dangerous and probably stupid, but I love you." His kiss was everything, desperate and gentle, claiming and giving. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "Marry me," he said. I laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. "Dante, I'm serious. Marry me. Be my wife. Marco's mother. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice." His forehead pressed against mine. "I know it's fast. I know you need time, but I need you to know my intentions. You're not temporary, Emma. You're forever. Ask me again," I said softly. "In a month. If you still feel the same way, if I still feel the same way, ask me again. I'll feel the same way." His certainty was absolute. "In a month, in a year, in 50 years, you're it for me." 1 month later, Dante asked again. We were on the balcony, the city glittering below us, Marco asleep in his room. "Marry me, Emma Clark. Make me the happiest man alive." This time, I said yes. The wedding was small, private. Just Marco, Carlo, a few of Dante's trusted men, and a judge who owed him a favor. I wore a simple white dress that Dante had chosen, and when he slipped the ring onto my finger, I saw tears in his eyes. "Mine," he whispered as we kissed. "Yours," I agreed. "Always." Marco cheered, launching himself at both of us, and we caught him together, the 3 of us holding each other tight. It wasn't a perfect life. There were still dangers, still enemies, still nights when Dante came home with blood on his hands. But there was also laughter and warmth, and a love so fierce it took my breath away. I'd started as nothing, invisible, struggling, alone. Now I was Emma Russo, wife to one of the most powerful men in New York, mother to a beautiful boy who called me Mama without hesitation. I'd found my family in the most unexpected place, and I would fight with everything I had to keep them. As Dante held me that night, his arms tight around me, his lips against my hair, he murmured, "Thank you." For what? For stopping. For helping Marco. For seeing past what I am to who I want to be. His voice was rough with emotion, for loving me anyway. I turned in his arms, cupping his face. Thank you for seeing me, for making me feel like I matter, for giving me a home. Always, he promised, kissing me softly, for the rest of our lives. And he kept that promise, through everything that came after, the challenges, the dangers, the beautiful, mundane moments of raising Marco together. Dante never wavered. His love was constant, fierce, all-consuming. I'd called a mafia boss about his fallen son, and in return, he'd given me the world. Our world, forever.